am he as you are, he as you are. Hi, everyone. This is the second side of the single. Well, it's the B side. And that means we get to listen to I Am the Walrus today, together, exploring, having fun discovering all the little surprises along the way that I enjoyed so much in my first listen. Well, let's start by watching and listening to my first listen. If you're on YouTube, I'm sorry you can't see it, but you can always find it on Ko-fi and Patreon. The official genre classification is psychedelic rock. Sounds fair enough to me. John gives some more details about the song's writing in 1968, saying, "We write lyrics, and I write lyrics that you don't realize what they mean till after, especially some of the better songs or some of the more flowing ones, like Walrus. The whole first verse was written without any knowledge. I didn't know what I was saying, and you just find out later. I had, I am he as you are he as we are all together. I had just these 2 lines on the typewriter, and then about 2 weeks later, I ran through and wrote another 2 lines, and then, when I saw something, after about 4 lines, I just knocked the rest of it off. Then I had the whole verse, or verse and a half, and then sang it. I had this idea of doing a song that was a police siren, but it didn't work in the end." And he sings like a siren, "I am he as you are he as..." You couldn't really sing the police siren. He also explained to Playboy, "The walrus comes from the walrus and the carpenter, Alice in Wonderland." That doesn't surprise me. I mean, this whole song has so much of Lewis Carroll's nonsensical poetry feel to it. I'm not surprised that he was kind of inspired by some of that. To me, it was a beautiful poem. It never dawned on me that Lewis Carroll was commenting on the capitalist system. I never went into that bit about what he really meant, like people are doing with the Beatles' work. Later, I went back and looked at it and realized that the walrus was the bad guy in the story and the carpenter was the good guy. I thought, oh shit, I've picked the wrong guy. But that wouldn't have been the same, would it? I am the carpenter? I think I agree with Lennon. It doesn't quite feel right. Another curious lyrical inclusion in I Am the Walrus, one that got the song banned by the BBC, was the phrase, "You've been a naughty girl, you've let your knickers down." I wondered about that when I listened to it the first time. It made me chuckle, and I thought, did he really get away with that? Apparently not quite. Everyone keeps preaching that the best way is to be open when writing for teenagers, Paul stated in 1967. Then, when we do, we get criticized. Surely the word knickers can't offend anyone. Shakespeare wrote words a lot more naughtier than knickers. I love that, calling on Shakespeare. John passively added, "Reed chose the word knickers because it is a lovely expressive word. It rolls off the tongue. It could mean anything." I can just hear John saying that. To put it all in a nutshell, Lennon explained in 1969, "Walrus is just saying a dream. The words don't mean a lot. People draw so many conclusions, and it's ridiculous." He added in 1980, "I've had tongue-in-cheek all along. All of them had tongue-in-cheek. Just because other people see depths of whatever in it, what does it really mean? I am the Eggman. It could have been the pudding basin for all I care. It's not that serious." And yes, there has been, and I have felt it and seen it many times, this tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of naughtiness, and at the same time, not too serious. And perhaps I have been a little bit guilty of this whole thing of reading into or taking seriously, profoundly, deeply a lot of what Beatles have produced so far in this journey. I understand what he's saying. You know, he wasn't really thinking deeply, profoundly, but these ideas were just coming out of him. They were the things he was playing with in his mind. They were fun ideas, and that brings me back to something I've said several times. That is that we should be careful not to apply intent where there wasn't any. However, when you have a really great work of art, it can have depths and meaning to it, which perhaps the artist didn't even realize at first, perhaps didn't even intend. You can even take something in a completely different direction and apply it in a completely different way, perhaps even opposite of what the artist intended. Because many times it's open to interpretation, it's open to understanding, and our experiences influence how we experience the art. So, I hear Lennon, and I hope that I hope that you don't feel that don't misunderstand me when I talk about some meaning or something that I find, some message that I find in the music as being, this is what they meant. Not necessarily. It's what I find in there. And so I think that this is a great place to say that again directly and to remind us all that, yeah, in many ways, these were still the same guys who just like to fool around and have fun and say, she loves me, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the play and the playfulness and the curiosity and the fun and the love for, humor and all of that comes through in their music is one of the things that makes it so brilliant, so catchy, so relatable. And here's another one. This one, well, we'll get to that.
It's She Loves You, yeah, yeah.
Got it wrong again. As to the style of lyric writing used in the song, Lennon explained in 1980, in those days, I was writing obscurely, a la Bob Dylan, never saying what you mean, but giving the impression of something, where more or less can be read into it. It's a good game. Well, there we go. I thought, they get away with this artsy-fartsy stuff. There has been more said about Dylan's wonderful lyrics than was ever in the lyrics at all. Mine too. But it was the intellectuals who read all this into Dylan or the Beatles. Is that labeling me an intellectual, perhaps? Dylan got away with murder. I thought, I can write this stuff too. You just stick a few images together, thread them together, and you call it poetry. But I was just using the mind that wrote in his own right to write that song. One other detail. The dramatic reading in the mix is Shakespeare's King Lear, Act 4, Scene 6, lines 219 to 222 and 249 to 262. It was added to the song on the 29th of September 1968, recorded directly from an AM radio Lennon was fiddling with. Now there's another detail that I learned, which is not written here, but I learned since I did my first listen, and that is another element of the inspiration behind this song, which I think was alluded to in what I just read. The idea of people reading into the text. Well, apparently, the Beatles were digging through some fan mail one day and pulled out a letter which came from a boy who was attending the high school, which Lennon himself had attended as a boy. And the letter said that the teachers there were having the students study the Beatles lyrics as part of their class assignments. Well, I guess Lennon got fed up or something, because I hear that he really didn't like how often and how energetically meanings were applied, which really had nothing to do with how the song came about. So he decided, let's write a piece of music, a song that has lyrics which are so confusing and so random that nobody is going to be able to come up with the right meaning or really analyze it in any sensible way. And so that was one of his intents with this song. However, unlike, say, something like Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky or Carpenter and the Walrus, unlike those, what Lennon did here is he pulled ideas from other songs, other events, all kinds of places. I mean, Jabberwocky is just a bunch of nonsensical words that don't have any meaning or don't mean anything in context. But things like, okay, and we can pick any line from this song, and I have learned that practically every line has a story of origin, which I'm not going to try to find every line's origin today. But it's a fun game, I guess, and it kind of fits the idea, the image I have built in my mind of Lennon and who he was and the way he liked to play jokes, his edginess, his personality, his maybe even a little bit of passive aggressiveness, just saying, Well, if that's what they want to do, I'll give them a job. Don't you love the way it seems like every Beatles introduction requires some exploration in its own right before we even get into the song itself. Same here. I mean, well, that opening line here. I guess I understand that was this whole piece is kind of built around the idea of the police siren and the sound of the police siren. That's why he was trying to even sing the lyrics to the police siren. How would we do that? I am he as you. Oh, let's see. I am he as you are, he as you are me. No wonder he gave up on that idea, right? But they managed to keep it embedded in the piece. And we really hear this all throughout the piece, this sort of police siren element. When I first heard it, and maybe it's partly because I'm American and here the police sirens don't sound like that, I didn't pick up on that at all. I thought, oh, that's cool. That builds a lot of tension. This da, 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 da. In fact, I associated it, I immediately thought of another song, which I've listened to by Aerosmith, which, it was Dream On, which also has a similar pattern. Da, 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 da. This time each pitch is repeated twice throughout, but it builds up this incredible, it starts out kind of spacey and easygoing, relaxed, almost like it's just wandering between the two. By the time we're at the end, it's built into this incredible pressurized tension climactic moment. And so I thought, maybe there's some connection between the two. I don't know. And then I discovered, this was all about a police siren. Okay. and there are other things there. It also kind of reminds me of the same type of, well, this is alternating, but I'm thinking of something like Strawberry Fields Forever, where it's more like bum 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 bum, this sort of pulsating. This seems to have sort of same type of pulsating feel, and I wonder if maybe, let's see, I guess Strawberry Fields Forever came after this one, right? No, it came before. I wonder if maybe, perhaps, this was some sort of development of the same sort of pulsating pattern, variant, because that's the way it is sometimes when we're composing and creating. We get an idea, and later we develop the idea further into something entirely different.
Are you now trying to read into Lennon's writing compositional meanings?
Actually, no. I'm not right.
Just like they were doing with trying to read into his lyrics.
No. Not yet, at least. This has nothing to do with meanings. This has to do with origins, with the development of compositional style. Just as, say, in Hello Goodbye, I was talking about McCartney's compositional practices. This seems to be something which showed up once before in Lennon's compositional design, so maybe this is a further exploration of it. It seems to be something that was a sort of a theme in a way for him at this point in time. So that's what I'm doing. But the thing that I love is when the strings enter. That little sweep up. Right? Just listen to the strings alone. Cello's pulsing away down there. It's just great. Sliding, gliding. It somehow makes me think of, I don't know, the sort of movie scene you would see that was meant to say, kind of tug on your heartstrings and be something from long ago. Do, 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 do. It's sort of melancholy, tragic, and beautiful all at the same time. But those pulsing cellos down here. Bum, 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 bum. And then dum, bum, bum, bum. It just, it becomes so rich and warm, so gradually. It just opens up the entire piece. From this little bit of opening here, and then suddenly we find ourselves a couple bars later just in this wonderful, rich world of string sound. Somehow this makes me think of Debussy. It really does. It makes me think of Debussy's music, where there's a dissonance, an edge, at the same time a sort of impressionism, at the same time this wonderful emotional depth to it. It's everything from, well, just think of the Children's Corner Suite, you know, where you've got all those different movements, some so beautiful, and then some so goofy and funny and playful, and it feels like this is Debussy all wrapped up in a single package. It's terrible. It's painful, and it's rough. I am he as you are he as. Where did that come from? And how on earth did we end up there from this wonderful, rich sound world? And again, it throws me back to, you know, Lennon's edgy humor. And it's like he's not going to let us settle anywhere. We start to feel that we are getting a grasp on it, and then he says, no, changing it up on you. And so we have this, which is so not what the strings were. Together. His voice is terrible there. I don't know, did they modify it or something? You know, who knows how they did it, but it sounds dreadful. And wonderfully dreadful, I will say. It works perfectly. It says, don't take this so seriously. This is not some romantic, deep, expressive moment, as I just fooled you into thinking when the strings were giving us their intro. I am he as you are he. I can't even do what it's doing with his voice. I'm he as you are me. Although I can't help but notice that even here, as he's singing, I am he as you are me, and we are all together. That together. Isn't that a sort of link back to the strings? Do, 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 do. It's that same sort of little slide swoop. Together. It's a way of kind of softening the brittleness and the raw metallic edge, like a piece of sheet metal that has been cut with a saw and has little burrs all along it. I am he as you are me, and we are all together. Oh, thank goodness we got to the end of that line. But don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is a terrible part of the music. It's a great part of the music because he does it in such a miserable manner, right? And his voice accentuates this tension and this conflict and edginess that comes from these semitones, from these half steps. It's like a sort of limping version of Fiorelisa, isn't it? Nothing smooth flowing like that. No, he says, let's make it limp. Let's make it painful. And then maybe I don't know, I'm going back to this idea that he's fooling with the school kids who are being made to analyze his lyrics. Or maybe he's fooling with the teachers. And isn't this Beethoven piece something that a lot of teenagers learn to play as kind of a, oh, look at me, I'm a real pianist now, I can play something beautiful, da 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 da. And he says, just hang on a second. Da 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 da. Let's make it terrible, because let's face it, coming from a piano teacher, most students play that piece terribly, and it's really, really difficult to get it really even and expressive there. So he says, let's exploit this. Let's turn this into really what it is, and let's make it enhance or let's make it fit so perfectly with the language. I am he as you are me, and we are all together. What a great spoken rhythm. I am he as you are he. That's how we would read it. I am he as you are he. I am he as you are he. It's just a little bit exaggerated. I am he as you are me, and we are all together. And it also accentuates certain syllables to make it even a little more punchy. I am he as you are me, and you are he, and we are all together. I think I got the words mixed up, but anyway, I don't think he would care. So all of this already, we have so much happening in this piece. We have this beautiful sweeping strings warmth, and then we have this painful compressed harmonic dissonance. Well, speaking of harmonic dissonance, I'm just thinking again of what I've run into along the way with the false relations, the way that they like to place, the Beatles seem to like to place a dissonant note in close proximity to another note harmonically. Like, let's say, for an example, let's just go really simply here. Let's take a C major, and then let's take an A major. And this C ends up having to be both this in C major and this in A major. And I've talked a bit about how they have exploited that element of false relations, the dissonance that, and so in a way, this is kind of doing the same thing too, just again, more exaggeratedly. It's as if Lennon takes every little detail and says, let's blow it up and turn it into something that has a life of its own here, and all that out of just two notes. We are all together. And we find ourselves so focused on this voice, sitting on a cornflake, still the same two notes, just rubbing against each other. As I said, like two raw edges of sheet metal that's been freshly cut, still rough with burrs, and you wouldn't want to touch it with your hands, and they're being rubbed together. Sitting on a cornflake, waiting for the van to come. I mean, even this minor descent here. Van to come, dum ba dum, ba-dum, da-dum, just the way it falls down in a minor way at the end of each phrase. Again, taking that sort of laconic, ironic, and passive-aggressive. I really feel like this is so passive-aggressive. Sitting on a cornflake, waiting for the van to come. Oh, wow. I mean, do I really want to meet him in real life? Actually, I think I would. Sitting on a cornflake. It's still coming to me. This sort of bomb, 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 bomb. The pulsing sort of flute-like, whatever it was, instrument that electric keyboard or whatever the mellotron that they were using at this point in time. I don't know exactly which instrument it was, but that bomb. But the same thing we hear in Strawberry Fields Forever. Bomb, bomb. It's there. It's in the background. And then the cellos are still moving around, doing their part here. Ya-ta-ta-ta-dum. Really quite lively, I would say. Sitting on a cornflake. that was actually a great spot to start because it highlighted the drums element.
Sitting on a cornflake.
Nice little commentary by the drums.
Sitting on a cornflake.
Kind of anticipating, sitting on a cornflake. Bum dum ta ta ta.
Sitting on a cornflake.
Isn't it so classically Lennon? You've been a naughty boy, you let your face grow long. Long-faced person. Is that naughty really? I mean, it's like he is out to get you and to get anybody in his way in this song. To me, it feels like he is, well, in a way, it feels like the same fire in the belly, the same rebel spirit, the same, you poked me in my eye, I'm coming, that I hear when I hear Queen's Death on Two Legs. This is not angry at anybody, but it feels like somebody just poked him in the right spot and they got it coming. We all got it coming.
Stupid bloody Tuesday, man, you've been a naughty boy. You let your
The cellos here kind of mimic and mirror and reflect a little bit offset what is being sung. Da 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 da. I mean, really, that's such a compact little bit of syncopation. Yeah da 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 da. Great little bit there. Again, just two notes. I feel like his whole piece is kind of Lennon's also saying, how did I say just Lemon saying? Does have a bit of sourness to it. Lennon also saying, let's just see if we can write a whole song based on two notes. Two notes. Da ba 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 ba. Let me show you what I can do with that.
corporation t-shirt, stupid bloody Tuesday, man.
Da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. Still the cello's coming in with this sort of rhythmic element. In fact, as much as they started out so sweeping melodically, it feels like as we are progressing through this piece, the cellos start to fill more of a role of some really great drumming, meaning rhythmic commentary on what is happening in the rest of the music. And I noticed that Ringo in this, actually, I forgot to mention, I learned something about Ringo's drumming on this too, which just by accident, I found this out, and I was so happy to have found this little nugget of information, because it's kind of one of the first moments where I feel like, Ringo has his human moments too, because he seems so rhythmically perfect all the time. So here's what I learned. This piece was recorded just after the death of their manager, Epstein. And they were all kind of lost and just feeling, what to do. How do we move forward? Can we even move forward? And they said, well, okay, let's just go and record this because we've got to continue. It's kind of the what to do when you're in a state of shock. You just pick up your feet and put one foot in front of the other. So they were all in the studio trying to record this. And Lennon is kind of demonstrating what he wants and everyone's filling in. And Ringo can't keep a steady beat. It's not together. His tempo is off and unstable. When I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, you mean Ringo actually had those moments? And it was McCartney who stood up and went and stood in front of the drum set and said, it's all right, I'll help. I'll be your metronome, or I'll be your clock, or something like that. In other words, McCartney just steps in and says, all right, let's make this work. And I thought it was such a sweet story, such a beautiful story of one of them stepping in to help the other at a point when they are all in this state of kind of helpless bewilderment, lost, not knowing how are we going to move forward. Should we even be here recording? But we're here because what else can we do? And at the same time, it was such a moment of even the best metronomes, like Ringo, because I understand he has this reputation of being the metronome drummer that always locks in the exact beat and never changes. And here he was, he couldn't do it. He couldn't be consistent. And I thought that was just incredibly sweet and incredibly beautiful. So here I'm noticing that Ringo isn't really doing a lot proactively in this music. Occasionally, like that one little spot I pointed out, oh, that was nice. There's not a lot of what I would say proactive anchoring or involvement with what's going on in the rest of the music. It seems like the cellos have taken on that role here. And Ringo is just there kind of being at the drum set because he needs to be. And I'm not saying that he's doing badly. It works, but it's interesting to hear the cellos taking more of a role of let's do something that is rhythmic commentary and interaction and glue between everything else and the melody that is being sung. I like that.
Policeman sitting, pretty little policeman.
Notice that I'm not really focusing on this song, on the harmonic scheme of it. It's kind of a strange harmonic scheme, the chords and everything. If we were to dig into that, we would end up in the weeds, and it would become a rather deep dive into music theory, which is probably more than we want to do in this type of exploration. It would turn into more of like a college theory class, a bit dry and challenging, to say the least. However, I don't feel bad about ignoring the harmonic design of this, because I don't believe that this is really focused on the harmonic shape. It is built off of this dee 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 dee, and building the tension between that relationship far more than it is built off of chord progressions. Yes, the chord progressions enhance all of that and work with all of that, work around all of that. But the fundamental building block of this piece, dee 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 dee, is that rather than the chords. Unlike Hello Goodbye, which, although the harmonies were a whole lot simpler, they played a much larger role in the experience of the piece. Here, we could sum up the harmony as being a bit illogical, with a bit of dissonance, and more than a bit of dissonance. I mean, all of this is about the dissonance and the edginess and all of that. And it takes some unique twists and turns. We can sum it up like that and call it good. And that's exactly what I'm doing, because it is far more about these other elements. Another thing I notice, building block music material wise, Lennon has moved far more, well, building off what I just said, he's moving away from building things off of harmonic relationships. He's moving into the 20th century classical music innovations and experimentations of, and away from the classical and romantic era of classical music, where everything was built off of logical harmonic progressions. Now, it's more about other things. This glissando element. It's like that moment in Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, on that piece where we just had this big swoop of an endless glissando that went up and up and up and up through the whole orchestra. It's like, it seems like it feels like it, I don't know, flipped a switch in his brain or opened a new door to him. And I hear in this music that kind of thing. All these swoops and glides and effects and layers, and it's a whole different way of constructing the music.
Crying
taken back to, I don't know, some other world, some other time with those strings. Dum ba da dum, dum bum. At the same time, we have all those weird sounds in there. What is that?
I am the walrus.
And I don't know. Is it supposed to be an alarm or a telephone or something ringing there? And all of that blending together and then throwing us back. Doo doo.
I am the Eggman.
Isn't that amazing? It just takes us so many places, one after the next after the next. And again, this is the musical side of Lennon saying, I am going to write something that you can't make sense of. Isn't it incredible how it fits together, actually? It feels kind of like somebody knitting a blanket or crocheting a blanket out of scraps of yarn, you know? All the scraps from so many dozens of projects before. You have these short lengths of yarn here, there, and everywhere. You just grab them all, you run out of one, you add the next, and you end up with this, shall I say, coat of many colors effect. This is a sort of coat of many colors effect to my ears. Musically, a bit of this, a bit of that, there, everywhere. And we managed to blend it all together and make it just kind of flow from one to the other. So many layers and layers. And I guess the thing that I think makes it work, there are a couple things. One of the things is this incredibly minimalistic melody, which is simply these two notes back and forth. That is the motif of the piece, melodically. If he were to do some more standard type melody or something with a more elaborate shape, more interest in and of its own self. I mean, just imagine singing this without any musical accompaniment at all. I am he as you are me, and we are all together. See how they run like pigs from a gun, see how they fly. I mean, can you imagine trying to hold somebody's attention, somebody's interest, singing a song that just oscillates between two notes like that all the way through, practically? Okay, there are a couple little interruptions, but it's mostly that. That is one of the strengths of this piece, musically. That is one of the things that helps it hold together. If I were going to make an example to explain what I'm talking about, I could say it's kind of like a random collage of all kinds of magazine and newspaper clippings from, let's say, a century of time. Not any particular theme, more like just somebody saying, let's take whatever's on the front page and whatever's on the middle page, snip something out, put it all together, paste it together, and we end up with this pattern or non-pattern, but of its texture and its color and its somehow the consistency of the material. It's all newspaper and magazines. And it's all random shapes, random pieces. You end up with something that could work as a wonderful wallpaper or decorative feature in a room, just out of that. And it feels like that's kind of what's happening here. Musically, certainly, I can hear it and I see it. Lyrically, as I said, I haven't tracked down every single story to every single line, but I'm aware that practically every line in the song has a story of inspiration from somewhere, something. Everything from I am the Walrus to, or I am the Eggman to what was it, the van line, I think. I mean, those are just a couple that I learned about, but I don't know all of them at all. doesn't matter. They're not supposed to make sense. But it's kind of fun to realize that every single one of them was clipped from somewhere and brought in here and pasted into this. Just some random pattern that happens to rhyme, sort of. See how they run like pigs from a gun? See how they fly? I'm crying! This opening to this bit here, sitting in an English garden, this line actually feels almost like it could be from a different song, doesn't it? It feels a bit like some of the ones that we've listened to where it was a fitting together of a Lennon composition and a McCartney composition, and they patched them together and made it work. It almost feels like it's this sort of transition. I wonder if maybe, again, Lennon is like, let's fool them here. Let's make them think it's patched together. Or maybe it is patched together. I don't know. But it's a different feel here. Actually, though, da 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 da. It's not something new. It's the rhythmic, lyrical content that makes it feel new. Listen, listen, listen. We just heard it. In fact, let's go back to the very beginning for this. This is cool. Okay, now, let's jump ahead again. Listen, listen. Singing the string line, but without the swooping and sliding. Instead, it's very precisely, cleanly articulated. Sitting in an English garden, but sitting in an English garden, waiting for the sun. That's the string line. It's the introduction. It's this little strings motif that has come here and there. And now he's turned it into part of the melody. This little bit, I am the Eggman, I am the Walrus, cuckoo, cuckoo. It's like we expect it to go somewhere. He builds us up to it. I am the Eggman, I am the Walrus, cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. But then it's like, hold on, all that tension for nothing? Is this a joke? Yes, it's a joke. I mean, seriously, these lyrics, we could spend hours just laughing and enjoying every word of it. Not just every line, every word of every line. I mean, everything from this one, which is really, really kind of stops you in your tracks. Crab-a-locker, fishwife, pornographic priestess. Who came up with putting those words all strung together? Boy, you've been a naughty girl. Well, hold on. You let your knickers down? Oh my goodness. I mean, that just goes on forever. But now we're here. And again, this is such a great line. Elementary penguin singing Hare Krishna. Man, you should have seen them kicking Edgar Allan Poe. Somehow I feel like maybe that's a little bit of a poking fun at the students trying to unravel all of this. Man, you should have seen them kicking Edgar Allan Poe. Like, they were doing Edgar Allan Poe. Now they're doing the Beatles. But really, it's a joke. I mean, this glissandi is almost becoming a secondary musical motif, isn't it? Maybe not quite a motif, but it's such a feature of this music. It's kind of the exaggerated side of these really tight intervals. D, 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 D. It's either this, D, 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 or it's woo, ooh, long range, up and down. It's either that or it's do, 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 as close as we can get, or just as free as we can go. I feel like, again, he's saying, you do one thing, I'll show you the other. Like, who came up with singing way down there, way down there? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's almost a reflection back on the singing Hare Krishna. It almost sounds like some monks singing some meditative mantra, something or other, way down there. As we're saying, cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. Like, this is such a joke. You want to take something seriously? Be all meditative and serious. You want to analyze Edgar Allan Poe? You want to sing Hare Krishna? Cuckoo, choo, cuckoo, choo. Like, in my lyrics, it's saying cuckoo, kachoob. Almost like it's a childish, like imitating a baby's goo, 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 and turning it into good job in a weird way. But when I listen to it, I hear cuckoo, kachoo, which also is funny because you say someone's cuckoo, it means they're kind of crazy. And kachoo is like sneeze, cuckoo, kachoo, cuckoo, kachoo. Like, it's just, I mean, you get the idea of really what he thought of all of this, right? All the crazy noise and swooping. Again, it's kind of taking this sliding, glissanding stuff to, did I just invent the word glissanding? Stuff to an extreme and throwing in the radio, in the whatever other noise is happening there. But what is catching my ears, what I'm listening to right now, is this contrary motion of walking down here in the bass. Which walks all the way down. Let's see if we can do this on the harp so you can get it in your ears. We have again, go that low. And then all the way to the B. That is from A down to B. That's 7 notes. All right. And then what's happening above that is I'm hearing the strings going the opposite direction up here. Up to E. Let's see, that's going to be an F sharp rather. And then we end up on a G natural, which again, we started down on A, that's 7 notes. So, doing them both together, we have both starting on A's. Opposite directions. And I hear this contrary motion building, and I'm noticing something in the strings, at least the upper strings. The bass is already down there. Let's listen to this closely. And the strings are repeating the pattern because it's a 7-note sequence. They start on A, and on G. The next A is just right above, and so they're doing the same sequence higher and higher. And so they're just kind of going on endlessly, higher and higher and higher as all this noise comes in. It's like static and squeaks and voices and everything else. But it's an interesting way of framing and outlining, creating a boundary for all the stuff in between. And it's an ever-expanding boundary. It almost feels like, I don't know, we're looking out into the universe and seeing how far it just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. We've gone so far out in space that we can't hear the noise of the world anymore. It's an amazing ending to this piece. We've been so compressed and pressured with this 2-note interval that is so tight and dissonant and edgy. And it's as if we've been through this whole bit of who knows what, right? How are we supposed to make sense of it all? And we come to the end, and suddenly we just find ourselves moving away. And the dissonance kind of disappears. It starts to expand, open up, further. We come further away. oh, we're going out into space. We're finding more. There's more to the universe than just the world we're in. And suddenly we're not in the world anymore. That's fading away, fading away. And it's such an incredible way of, I wouldn't say relieving the tension, releasing the tension, but simply allowing the tension to dissipate at the end. Well, for this song, I'm going to refrain from the temptation to dig into that idea of the expanding universe and leaving the chaos and noise of the world behind. Although it is tempting to go there, I'll let you do it on your own time and your own way. But there is a lot in this piece of music, even if it's not meant to be logical and make sense. There is so much to explore, to enjoy, to feel and be curious about. And it's one of those temptations, like the unsolvable puzzle, or the puzzle that nobody has solved of, oh wow, so much there, pulling me in. It's there's this sort of addiction to it, right? I get that feeling. Clearly, this is a reference point in the development and progression of the Beatles' music. I feel like this is kind of a moment of everything that I heard in Sgt. Pepper's, all the new ideas coming about and being explored there. I feel like all of it has been brought into this one piece. Of course, I have no idea where they're going from here, but I'm sure that I'll be returning to this piece many times along the way, both on my own time for my own curiosity and enjoyment and entertainment, and also probably in the course of the series as I reference and notice how things progress from here. So loads of fun. This was a great single release. I feel like both of them, Hello Goodbye and I Am the Walrus, both of them are really great songs. I don't have the same feeling that Lennon had about thinking Hello Goodbye is a terrible piece. And it's interesting to me, though, to hear where he's going as opposed to where McCartney went in this pairing and comparison of the two. That is really interesting to me as well. I don't know if that's how it's going to be from here on out, but so there we have the completion of the exploration of the single. I'm eager to see what comes next. I guess it's another album. Vlad's nodding behind the camera. So I get another album first listen coming up. I'm super excited. I'll see you all soon.